And we are rolling. Okay. Hey, welcome back. This is another vlog update here that I'm doing. I like that format that we did last time. This is me riding an electric unicycle. Right now I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, in an Air Force Park. This is an exploratory ride for me. This is kind of the first time I've ever gone in this area. So I'm just kind of cruising around, riding my KingSong electric unicycle. Now, if you're with me still, if you haven't been kind of turned off by all that yet, if you haven't thrown up, from the shaking and the view and everything like that. The point of this here is I'm going to talk about a little bit what I've been up to in poker recently, and then cover a little bit of strategy here at the end. So the last time we talked, I'd been involved in a Kevin Rabichow Rio home group thing. That was fantastic. I'm going to be having my upcoming one-on-one coaching with Kevin here very soon, and I did a coaching with Jason Su, part of his mental performance group, and I'm kind of re-upping with him again, so I'll have some updates regarding that. I have just finished up a book called The Pressure Principle. I'm going to be running a book club on that. Now, the idea, as always, through these different videos is to both sort of provide some poker entertainment and knowledge as I find people who would be interested in working with me both in poker and in some other things outside of poker. So some bigger and larger projects both in poker and outside of poker. I'll cover that more in other videos. This time I think I'm just going to kind of get more forwards into the poker content. I do want to throw one last sort of shout out. There was an excellent Guerilla poker video that I'll mention in the show notes that involved 3-betting and equity retention in suited connectors. So here in this video, this is the first time I'm actually coming up to this. This is like a skate park I find for the first time, and I'm on my unicycle, and this is just kind of amazing to me. I'm discovering this here for the first time. But let me just hop into this presentation. One of the reasons I'm really excited to do this is because since the last one of these I did, I've just been on fire basically with poker, just kind of crushing it, doing well. So that's been really encouraging. And so I've been moving into starting more games. You may have noticed me if you play against me on PokerStars PA. I'm starting games in the morning, mainly at 2-5. Like always been at 1-2, but I'm going to be the kind of guy now to take more shots and be the game starter at 2-5. And I want to turn that into something that's eventually a bit more regular, that maybe I'm even streaming and talking about. But for now, I'm just getting familiar with being the game starter at 2-5. And here we go. Oh, up we go on that. That was fun. This is pretty exhilarating. Doing this. Oh, wipe out. I wiped out pretty hard there. But let me get into this 2-5 hand first of all. Starting a game against a regular who's a little bit on the tighter side. And I'm going to move on from this video. I'm going to now go into one. This is from the Oxford Valley Mall, Sesame Place, where that is, if you're familiar with Sesame Street, Pennsylvania, the Adventure Park. This is July 4th. I'm kind of just cruising around, and this is July 4th. So I'm just going to play this out, and this is me kind of riding around on July 4th. So back to that hand. This is 2-5. I'm learning to play heads up. I'm starting games. We have a hand. We're 130 big blinds deep. You can see in the upper left here, I 3-bet my ace-king off, and I face a flop with 9-5-3. 2 spades. I have the nut spade draw. At this spot, I like to play probably 3 bet sizers. Realistically, I don't know that, but that's kind of what just feels right to me. So definitely with the depth here, it didn't make sense, I would think, to be playing as much to the range smaller size. So I went with a larger size here to apply some pressure, and it worked, I think. I think that's a good bet here. I'll pull up GTO here in a little bit. My question then was, though, do I continue to apply pressure on the turn here? I think a down bet it becomes kind of mandatory with a lot of our range, and I think we can extend that. And I think we don't actually get raised that often in that spot. I think the real question, though, is what do we do here on the river? I had basically just pot behind here, and I shoved on my nut flush river, and I thought this was an interesting spot. Am I ever checking here? What are we basically doing here in this position? And so let's see, take a little look here in GTO. So right off the bat, we are looking at a spot where my three betting options, it likes the 3/4 size, about 40%. So with my exact hand of ace king, it's mixing, right? Mixing for the most part. Its strongest bet, the hand that it's betting the most out of all those 90% of the time, is ace king with the king of spades. My particular hand, the ace spades king of diamonds, and this does become relevant later, is betting both at the smaller size and at the 3/4 size, smaller size being 30% pot. The turn here is the eight of spades. If we're looking at some strategy here, for the most part, we're going to be down betting and kind of like doing this block down bet on the turn here about, 1/3 of the time and checking 2/3. With my actual exact hand, I am finding more of that bet. So that's with my nut redraw. And with the king of diamonds in particular, it finds a few extra bets here. So I felt pretty good about that. So I bet and we got a call and we went to the river of a queen of spades. And yeah, with my exact hand here, we are putting it in. That felt pretty good. That felt pretty good to do. I found really this is the interesting part that I found about this hand, and I think this is where I learned a lot. And I think GTO Plus is awesome. That's the program I'm using right now. If we go back and we look at the river and figure out with my exact specific hand what we're going to be doing, look at all these rivers that it shoves all in. Blue is all the all-in shoves here. Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I get to shove so many rivers here. All the hearts, the clubs, diamonds. But what's interesting is if my kicker is not the king of diamonds, look at how many more checks it finds. Look at how many more if it's ace of spades, king of hearts. So even with the nuts here, this king of diamonds kicker is really, really important. I found that to be a really interesting concept. And part of that is I'm going to continue talking about this hand, but look, we got some fireworks going. I came back from this ride just at the end to start the fireworks celebration for Sesame Street. If you hung in that long, I'm just going to let these fireworks roll out for a little bit and continue talking about hands. So what I wanted to mention is I'm betting here, three betting a very kind of like top heavy linear, top 15% of hands or so. And that allows me to basically play these very strong kind of lines this way with more betting. Now I want to show what that looks like since I'm starting to get into more heads up. Hey, what do heads up ranges actually look like? And so here's some of them. You can just kind of see way different. I've 8-7 off some fraction of the time, 10-9 off, 10-7, 44% of the time. These ranges are vastly different from obviously the one that I'm doing, although it's the same about 15% 3-bet. So that's going to be an adjustment. We're going to learn about that for sure. That's going to be a slow implementation. But if I was to take that line with my ace king off, my actual ace king off on this hand is checking a tremendous amount of the time. We can see ace of spades, king of diamonds checks 60% of the time here. So this entire hand is played different by the ranges, just completely different. And I thought that was fascinating. I thought it was fascinating how much the king of diamonds mattered in the last hand. And then over here, my hand is not even really a consideration to continue polarizing with here. If we are going to be betting here, we're checking for the most part, but we're open up to all options here of overbetting on the flop, down betting, and middle-sized betting. So this is actually a kind of very hard betting strategy to implement here and figure out. So that was just one first hand here I wanted to talk about. And let's see what comes up next. What do I have? Oh, here's a pretty basic spot. It's a pretty basic spot, but I think it's really fascinating. And just before we get into it, hey, you may have lost me there too. Before we get into it, I think this spot is just really, really interesting because most people are just going to play a ranged c-bet here in this spot, right? It's a really interesting hand in the terms that This is a spot where people generally recognize that they can check raise stronger here. This is a single raise pot. I'm in the cutoff for big blind. I have ace 5 of spades, and the flop is 10-7-2 rainbow with no backdoors for me. So this is in a solver with a strategy of a C bet of 35%. You don't even have to force changes in here to bet the entire range. It already does like 95% of the time. The only hand solver here is ever checking some percentage of the time is ace 9 suited, and that's just a small fraction. So already, this hand screams for a bet. The thing is that it's very natural in here to play a 15% check raise here. And I was playing a villain at the time that was more aggressive in defending his big blinds, but even his check raise percentage on the flop was something like 13%. And so if you have to be check raising here at least like 15% of the time, I chanced it. I thought that it was kind of likely that this is one that he'd recognize, but I think that even still an aggressive player may not be making these check raises enough. If he does, it actually makes a hand very, very easy for me because ace 5 suited is never a continue without the backdoors. So that was kind of one of the advantages that I thought that it wouldn't be bad if he just check raised me, is my hand has no real backdoor potential anyway, that it may be okay to give up here, but the overall strategy of firing range here makes you feel really, really vulnerable sometimes. And I'm just not sure how much I like playing that all the time now. So I'm trying to work in more overbets, because I think overbets kind of protect and allow you to do more things that are more interesting from polarization perspectives. And so if I can find this database real quick. These fireworks are pretty good. Got to hand it out to Sesame Street or Sesame Place. They did an excellent job. And so here's a database that we'll take a look at that includes both the down bet sort of range C bet size and an overbet one. And we're having a little bit of a lagging issue here with everything running. But look at the difference here, that if I give a C bet size of 30%, and I hope everything's showing up clearly here. Yeah, if everything is about the same, I'm still betting about 95% of the time. But look what I'm doing here with some of my ace 5s, is I'm actually overbetting them. And I'm actually applying a lot of and getting a lot of additional bluff equity. Because now all the hands that he liked before on check raising the flop, hands like, some gutters or pair and backdoors, things that, can apply a lot of pressure. They're not going to be able to respond to that. And I get to get this added additional benefit of maybe getting other ace highs to fold. And so it becomes like this really potentially lucrative option to start doing some overbets with these ace highs that are much lower and, don't really have a lot of value. And you get a ton of value when you can start protecting those hands with your overpairs like queens and jacks here. So I think it's a really interesting way to kind of look at the strategy between these hands and realize that range C bets, a solver there is just going to be happy firing pretty much all the time anyway. It really likes being able to bet range there. But if you give yourself a little bit more options and make your strategy a little bit more complex, it's going to have a really, really hard time responding to a bet like that. Now, check raises even more here. You can see against a smaller sizing when he includes the polar or larger sizing. But your opponent has to know that strategy, and he's going to have to find the additional 5% check raising here. And that's just going to be really hard for him to do. Difficult spot. You can really, really kind of benefit your game by looking for more overbets on the flop. And I've been headed in that direction for a little bit. And I thought this hand was a good hand. It was a simple hand. We're all in this spot a lot. We kind of know the meta that it's important to check raise the flop here. And how can we be protecting against that meta? And what do we need to know? And how can we kind of advance past that? So I thought that was really, those are some good hands. Now, that said, oh, hey, Got to figure out a better way to keep my beautiful face streaming up there, not frozen like a joke. So let's take another look at a hand. I want to throw out there and mention that I am looking for more people to bring on and do some video coaching. I have actually some fun, bigger plans with that, but really right now, if you're interested in any video coaching from me, I will review your play and explain, and my rates are pretty amazing right now to try to build up some people. It's $1 a minute, basically. So 30-minute video I will review and explain for $30 plus, some other covering time. So you're going to get a lot of value out of that. I guarantee I can make you better through your play and just examining your thought process. And I wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention, if you're still here, to basically hop in the Discord. I am going to be giving those away for free if you get yourself in the Discord and make yourself known in introductions. Easy peasy. You listen this far, if you want to take advantage, sounds good. All right, so as these fireworks play out, this is a finale here. I just wanted to throw in one last hand that I thought was good and I was proud of. I'm in the cutoff. I 3-bet ace-jack off against an under the gun. I get a cold call from the small blind, and so we go 3-way to the flop, and the flop is 8-8-3 with a flush draw. I bet range here after they both check to me for 30%. The small blind check calls, and the under the gun folds. So going to the turn, we have the small blind versus myself. It is 8-3-3. The turn is an 8 of diamonds, no flush, and I am donked into for half pot, and I think that's an interesting decision. What do you do there? What is villain playing with? What is he doing there? Do we think he has an 8 in this spot? I think an 8 becomes his least likely hand here. It's really pretty incredible to fire off, and this is a good finale, huh? Any stronger hand here? I just felt suspicious. I felt like maybe he was testing out with ace high. I called here, and on a 2 river, which is the least likely, he goes all in for pot, which is about a little less than 80, and I called. And I figured I can win here sometimes. I can chop here sometimes, and certainly I have a few losses here. I wasn't entirely sure what those losses may be to, but I figured I had a lot of both chops and calls here that are going to be successful against worse hands, like some missed spades. And I called, and I chopped against another ace high, ace queen. So that was my happy hand of the week in a big spot. And that was the ride around. This was a video for this week. I'll come back next time with some info on the book club, what the coaching's been up to. I appreciate if you watched along this far, and please give me any feedback and join the Discord. Much appreciated.